The DNA test results were sitting right there on the kitchen table. My husband stared at the paper like his entire world had just collapsed. Then he looked at me with tears in his eyes and whispered, "So the baby really isn't mine?" I couldn't even answer, because at that moment, I believed the lie too. 3 months earlier, we were painting a nursery together. Now he was stuffing his clothes into garbage bags while my mother stood beside me saying, "I told you he was never the right man." And before he walked out the front door, I said the sentence that destroyed my marriage forever. "You were never ready to be a father anyway." That night my husband slept in his car, and at 2:13 a.m., the hospital called me, and everything I thought I knew about my life shattered instantly. There was a time when I truly believed Michael, and I would survive anything. We weren't rich. Not even close. We lived in a tiny apartment outside Chicago with thin walls and unreliable heating. But somehow, it felt like home. Every morning Michael made coffee before work. He'd kiss my forehead while I pretended to still be asleep. Then he'd leave for construction wearing those dusty work boots I secretly hated cleaning near the front door. But honestly, I loved him. Not because he was perfect. Because he tried. He worked harder than anyone I'd ever known. And for years, that was enough for me. Back then I used to look at him and imagine growing old together. A little house. A daughter. Family vacations. Movie nights. Normal things. Safe things. But somewhere along the way, fear started poisoning everything. I found out I was pregnant on a rainy Tuesday morning. I sat alone on the bathroom floor staring at the positive test while my hands shook uncontrollably. I should have felt terrified. Instead I cried from happiness. Michael always wanted children. Sometimes he'd point at random little girls in grocery stores and whisper, "That's gonna be me someday." That night I surprised him with candles and the pregnancy test sitting on the kitchen counter. The second he saw it, he broke down crying. Real crying. The kind that comes from somewhere deep inside a person. He hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. And for a moment, everything felt perfect. Then my mother moved in. And that's when the cracks started showing. My mother Diane never liked Michael. According to her, he wasn't ambitious enough. Construction workers had no future. I settled by marrying him. She constantly compared him to my ex-boyfriend Jason. Jason owned luxury properties downtown. Expensive suits. Expensive watches. Expensive everything. My mother worshipped money. And unfortunately, sometimes I think part of me did too. The first night she stayed with us, she looked around our apartment and quietly asked, "This is really where you want to raise a child?" Michael laughed awkwardly, but I stayed silent. And honestly, that silence changed everything. Pregnancy changes your emotions in ways nobody prepares you for. I became exhausted constantly, emotional, irritated, and meanwhile my mother kept whispering poison into my ear. "Jason would have given you a better life. Michael works too hard because he has no education. You deserve stability." At first I ignored her. Then slowly, those thoughts started living inside my head. And once doubt enters a marriage, it spreads like smoke. Then one afternoon I accidentally ran into Jason at a coffee shop. At least that's what I told myself. Maybe deep down I wanted to see him again. He looked successful, confident, untouchable. And standing there listening to him talk about luxury apartment, and I hate myself for admitting that. Michael noticed the changes immediately. He kept asking, "Are you okay?" And every time I lied, because I didn't even understand what was happening inside me anymore. I stopped reaching for his hand, stopped kissing him first, stopped saying we. One night he kissed my stomach and I instinctively pulled away. The hurt in his eyes haunted me afterward. But instead of fixing things, I kept drifting further away. The envelope arrived on a Friday. White. Thin. Ordinary. My mother opened it before Michael got home. And when she read the results, everything exploded. 99.9% exclusion. Not the father. I remember staring at the words while my entire body went numb. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. Because suddenly every fear inside my head became real. When Michael walked through the front door later that night, I was already crying. Michael kept rereading the DNA test over and over. Like the words might magically change. I'll never forget the expression on his face. Confusion first. Then pain. Then complete devastation. And instead of comforting him, I pushed him away. Because honestly, I was angry too. Angry at him. Angry at myself. Angry at life. My mother stood beside me acting like she was protecting me. But now I realize, she was helping destroy my marriage. Then Michael whispered, "So what happens now?" And I said the cruelest thing I've ever said to another human being. "You should leave." Even now, I still hear those words in my nightmares. Michael packed his clothes silently. Garbage bags. That image still destroys me. 6 years together reduced to black trash bags near the front door. Part of me wanted to stop him, beg him to stay, but my pride wouldn't let me. Then before he walked out, I looked him directly in the eyes and said, "You were never ready." He walked out without another word, and the apartment suddenly felt colder than I'd ever felt in my life. After Michael left, the silence became unbearable. His coffee mug still sat beside the sink. His jacket still hung near the door. Every corner of the apartment reminded me of him. Meanwhile, my mother kept insisting, "You did the right thing." But deep down, something felt wrong. Terribly wrong. I barely slept for days. And every night I imagined Michael alone somewhere wondering how his life collapsed overnight. That guilt started eating me alive. At exactly 2:13 a.m. my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered half asleep. "This is St. Mary's Hospital." Immediately my stomach dropped. The nurse sounded nervous. "There's been a problem involving your DNA results." The second she said that, I knew. Somehow I knew. When I arrived at the hospital, my mother was already panicking. Jason showed up shortly afterward because my mother called him. Everything felt surreal. Then the doctor walked into the room holding another folder and calmly explained that the clinic accidentally switched patient files. The DNA test wasn't ours. The real results had finally arrived. And according to the actual report, Michael was the father. 99.99% certainty. The room went completely silent. My knees nearly gave out underneath me, because in that moment, I realized I had destroyed the best person in my life over a mistake. I started crying immediately. Not soft crying. Violent crying. Because suddenly I remembered. Michael painting the nursery. Michael working overtime. Michael reading parenting books. Michael talking to my stomach at night. And I had thrown him away like garbage. My mother tried blaming the clinic. But honestly, the clinic wasn't the real problem. Over the next week I begged Michael to come home. I apologized constantly. I blamed hormones, stress, fear, my mother. Maybe all of that mattered. But none of it erased what I did. Michael listened quietly while I cried. Then finally he looked at me and said, "I forgive you, Emily." For one brief second I felt hope again. Then he quietly added, "But I can't stay." That sentence shattered me. Because deep down, I knew I deserved it. 3 years later our daughter has Michael's eyes. His smile too. Every weekend she runs into his arms yelling, "Daddy!" And every single time, part of my heart breaks all over again. Because I know what we could have been. Michael and I eventually learned how to co-parent peacefully. But we never became a family again. Some wounds heal. Others become part of you forever. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking about that DNA test. Thinking about how quickly fear destroyed my marriage. And honestly, the hardest part isn't losing Michael. It's knowing he loved me completely. Right until the moment I stopped believing in him. And every once in a while, usually very late at night, I still remember that phone call at 2:13 a.m. The call that proved Michael was the father. But also proved I had already destroyed the life we were supposed to have together.